Joining me now is Liberal MP Dave Sharma. He joins us live from Sydney this morning. Mr Sharma, thanks so much for your time. Coronavirus cases once again over the weekend have increased in Australia. We've seen panic buying. Why aren't people heeding those urgings and those warnings from the government to remain calm, do you think?
Well, look, I think because there's a fair bit of unknowns around this virus, its scale, how long it'll go on for, which countries are likely to be next affected, people are a little anxious and a little uncertain. I think that's understandable, but it's important to realise, particularly for key goods on supermarket shelves, like toilet paper, like pasta, like breakfast cereals, these are all produced and sourced in Australia by and large, and we're not going to experience shortages here. So, by all means, people should be prudent. People should be, washing their hands regularly, and if they exhibit flu-like symptoms, restricting their contact with people, but there isn't any need for this sort of buying.
You've been back in your electorate over the weekend after 2 weeks of sitting in Canberra. What are you picking up? Are people not being given enough information through official channels, state and federal governments, and are they relying perhaps too much on social media, causing this problem?
Look, I think I did some of the shopping on the weekend on Saturday, and a lot of empty supermarket shelves and a lot of, excessive buying of certain products, I think, was in evidence. But look, I think it's just people are not quite sure how they should be preparing for this. I think the government's done a good job, state and federal, in providing a lot of information. But the truth is, we're just not quite sure yet where this virus will be, where it will be contained and when it will be contained. We're still getting to grips with things like the morbidity rate, the transmission rate, the way transmission works. So I think it's understandable that because there's a lot of unknowns out there still, despite all of our best efforts, people are exhibiting some of this behaviour. Well,
the Treasurer will unveil that stimulus package we've heard so much about this week. Should we have seen that earlier?
Look, I don't think so, no. I mean, I think this has been an evolving challenge to the global economy, really, and we've seen figures just overnight from China that shows year-on-year exports from China are down about 20%, which is pretty massive, and other indices like the Purchasing Managers Index in China show a significant slowdown in economic activity. So this is something that we need to be responding to in a continued and progressive sort of a fashion, and I think the announcement that will be made later this week will be, it'll be one important step, but it may not be the last step in this regard.
Yeah, we've been told temporary and targeted, but also scalable as well. So whatever we see this week, will it be? It won't be set and forget. It could even be more money that's required down the track. Is that right?
I think that's right. I mean, I think this is an evolving challenge to the global economy, and so our response will need to be evolving with it. I think the most important thing to restore here, though, is, investor and consumer confidence, and that's true for the global economy as much as it is for Australia. I think the fundamentals of the Australian economy, but also the global economy, are quite strong, and the absolute impact of this virus on those things is quite limited. But it's really been the market sentiment and consumer reaction to this news which has really put a drag on global growth.
We've seen these problems in Italy. 16 million people now in lockdown, Dave Sharma. We have increased screening of people coming from Italy, but is it now time to think about perhaps shutting off all people who are coming from that country?
Look, I think this is something that's assessed on a day-by-day basis. Obviously, we announced new measures for South Korea, I think, just over the weekend. Iran and China are already in that category. But it's important to note here that what we're talking about when we stop people coming is non-citizens. If you're an Australian citizen, of course, you'll still be let into this country, and they can be wittingly or otherwise carriers of this. So, I think containment or prevention, if you like, is an important part of it, but we also need to look at strategies like mitigation in-country and treatment within-country, because, look, the truth is the mortality rate of this virus, at the moment at least, seems lower than it was for SARS. We've dealt with these sorts of global health pandemics before. They often cause a lot of alarm at the beginning, and rightly so. People are right to, I think, overreact and be more prudent. But I think, given what we know about this crisis at the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to be significantly worse than any of the earlier ones. I
know you've been very vocal about the plight of Kylie Moore-Gilbert. She is an Australian and British citizen. She's been locked up in an Iranian prison, the Evin prison, for almost 2 years now. Are you more concerned about her welfare given the outbreak of coronavirus in Iran?
Look, I am particularly concerned. I mean, Iran has been one of the epicentres, if you like, of this crisis, and I know the public health system is good, but it's struggling to respond to some of this. They did announce just recently that I think they were releasing about 54,000 prisoners on furlough, basically because they couldn't cope with this crisis in their jails. And Evan Prison, which is where Dr. Kylie Moore-Gilbert is being held, there are reports that coronavirus is quite prevalent there. So, look, I'm particularly concerned for her health and her welfare. I don't think she was in a strong health state to begin with, as indicated by the letters that she smuggled out. So, you know, I do hope Iran extends to her.
Has our government stepped up efforts since this outbreak, though?
Look, we've been very active on her case. Okay. I mean, I'm not part of that effort myself. I'm just a member of Parliament, but I know our government's been in constant contact with the Iranian authorities to try and ensure that her consular needs and her welfare needs are being well looked after. But it's a very challenging situation in Iran.
Dave Sharma, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Laura.